What if, for example, I know that you said that Danantara wants to be fully corporatized, but what if, for example, somebody says, hey, can you invest here? Because this is my favorite project, but it's not profitable. It doesn't have the best prospect. Do you have the liberty and independency to
say no to Jokowi or SBA?
Yeah, that's our
basically
job.
what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
to
it's
say no
okay.
to Jokowi, sorry, SBA, sorry. Do you have the liberty to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to say it different ways.
Yeah.
Hello, Weeboos. Welcome back to the Wee Wee podcast. And as you can see, we're not in our usual place. We're in a very fancy office right now. And I think the clue is like right behind me. So yeah, we're going to talk about Danantara today. And we have a very special guest today, Mr. Pandu Sjahrir. I heard this is your first podcast.
Yes, this is my first podcast.
Oh.
And I got to speak in English.
Yes.
Okay,
Pure
fine.
English.
I gotta speak
Great.
in English. Great.
Okay, so before we start, I think Andovi wants to start.
I'm going to surprise you a bit here.
No, I think you will.
Our parents know each other.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't think you would know because I was young also.
Oh, okay.
But Om Chiil went to prison with my dad, with Malari. So my dad is Timotheus Polikarpus Tekada Lopez, Ketua BEM Atmajaya when the Malari thing happened in 1974.
My man.
So when my dad's already passed away in 2019.
God
Your
bless
dad passed
his
away in
soul.
2008.
2008.
Yeah. So I told my mom I was going to I told my mom I was going to interview today. And my mom, who is Hendrahini Andris, Mapala UI, just like your mom was Ketua Mapala UI. Tante Ker.
Yes.
When I say these names, I'm not saying Dr. Kartini. I'm not saying that Tante. And now that I know that my dad and your dad had history together, went against Malari, fought against the regime, went to prison. The reason why I'm basing it on this is that my family came from a family of activists. So did your dad.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I, Andovida Lopez, am very skeptical of Danantara.
Okay.
So I'm putting my position very, very transparent. So
good.
people in the Wee community know. And of course, I respect your dad. And of course, my dad as well.
Yeah,
They did the whole thing together. And I just want to say thank you. And people never talk about your dad enough, in my opinion, and people don't talk about my dad enough because Malari isn't a thing that's talked about in the history. 1974.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and now that you are the chief investment officer of Danantara, you have such a big responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Many people in the Weeboos, they're called Weeboos, by the way.
Weeboos.
Like, what is it? Indonesia booze.
Yeah.
Weeboos.
Yeah. A lot of them are skeptical as well.
A lot of them. And
Very,
this
very
is not
skeptical.
a got you type of interview.
No.
If this was a got you type of interview, you would have gone somewhere else.
No.
But
Good.
I'm here for you to convince me as an econom, as a great econom. Please convince people who are skeptical like me and many young kids why Danantara will be successful. You come from a great family. You come from good people.
Yeah.
Fought against the regime, activists. And now you're heading Danantara. How do you feel about this? That's my first question. How do you feel about this, knowing your family's history of activism and now that you're in Danantara?
And maybe also about like Indonesia's condition right now in general,
Look at
right?
that.
Yes.
Man, you guys going all in. So actually, I feel good from a professional standpoint. I think, it's the highest you can go because I'm an investor the last 25 years. You actually talk about family background. I'll touch that separately. But from a professional standpoint, I love it because it's very difficult to do. It's very hard and it's definitely out of my comfort zone. That's why I love it. And that's the only way for me to grow. This is professional. On a personal level, it's true because my family, both my mom, my dad, and a lot of people know probably my uncle now, because given his relevance the last 10 years, they have a very patriot way of looking at things. My parents actually came from a very academia perspective. And like it or not, my dad and his late uncle are also activists in a way. Jadi kalau the story is, Sultan Sjahrir too, he also got separated away. They call him the first prime minister, but because of power struggle, he was moved away, right? And the one who benefited was Hatta in that sense, right? I mean, this is the story. Sjahrir himself is an activist, true to the heart, right? And the reason he became later on known as an economist because he was in jail for 5 years. There's a story that was told by my dad and by my family. He got into Harvard. And then the president allowed him to leave. And then when he came back, the president asked, hey, you still have got 4 more years to go. I got kids. I'm going to go back to jail.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go back to jail, we'll do a trade. What's the trade? You no longer be involved in politics, in whatever it is you do. Just focus on being whatever, a business person or whatever you want to do, an economist, but no more politics for you.
Right.
So he decided to do it, even though his heart says no, because of the two of us. So he worked for this guy named Professor Sumitro when he first joined.
Which is Prabowo's father.
Which now happens to be the president's father. At the time, Prabowo was still in the military, right? So he worked there for 5-6 years, and he became an activist again in 1998.
Yeah, he did. I remember.
He also did the thing. He got shot at and everything. So my childhood, when I grew up, there's always this idea, and so many people, so many of now they call it elder statesmen, talk about the role of republic and what the republic should be, the thinking of what Indonesia should be, and what Indonesia is. Frankly speaking, this new role, the last 10 weeks, invokes a lot of that old feelings and old thinking. And now what Danantara is, it should be an engine of growth, but there's also a lot of philosophical things behind it, so which I think we'll share. So, when you talk about, I know I've been in Indonesia now the last 15 years. I was away, essentially, because after my father passed away, I decided I just want to work outside, right? Because I want to be rewarded for my hard work, etc. And to be honest, I was in that young phase. I don't want to be associated with my parents.
Got it.
And whatever the name, I don't want to be associated with the Pandjaitan, Luhut Pandjaitan name, the Dr. Sjahrir's name, etc. Let me establish my own. This is good for background. So when I went back in 2010, and this is weird, it was my uncle who asked me to come back, and then, I said, okay, let me try to learn to be a businessman. And I've been so lucky. Where I made my money has nothing to do with him. I made my money because of Shopee, right? Gojek, all this tech stuff. The mining stuff, to be honest, is second, not this. So I made money what I call from human capital businesses, not necessarily from resource business, which is very different than most people that make money in Indonesia, from a businessman. So going back, I got asked to become this Danantara CIO, Chief Investment, 11 weeks ago when the president called me, and I thought I will do another job, something different, more fun, right? When I came in, he said, hey, Pandu, I want you to go there, but I think there's a bigger responsibility I want you to do, which is what? Danantara. And I asked him in English, what is Danantara? It's going to be a great sovereign fund. What do you mean? I want to stand tall among nations. I want us to be the agent of change, and I don't want to be depending on others. Why don't we move and fully corporatize all this SOE? I was like, my God, this is crazy. What about the politics? Let's love politics. To be honest, I don't love politics as much as you do because of my family background. I'm a little bit allergic to politics, but I have to learn politics, right? So I said, okay, what about politics? I said, I take care of politics. You focus on building a great organization. And I told them two things. One, I've never done anything this big. Honestly, I'll try my best. I think I've done the things I did with Shopee, etc. But again, this is something bigger. And I asked, why me? I said, wow, choose me.
The $1 million
The $1 million. I mean, I thought it was like the $900 billion question. And I said, I've seen all the people among all. You're the one with the least amount of problem. I was like, this one. But also, you have the one with the best track record.
I see.
And I did ask, what about? Does anybody know about this? No, this is my idea. I was like, okay.
So he personally appointed.
I'm like, I was shocked.
Wow.
So people ask, oh, it's maybe Luhut who did this. Luhut didn't know until the next day.
Really?
I was like, what? Oh, I mean, I also was shocked, right? I was like, who did this? So he actually, similar to my uncle in a sense, he always does check, recheck, and recheck people. 3-4 different people. So he supposedly had 10 names. It all dwindled down to essentially one or whatever the names were. And I learned this now as the process goes. And I realized he asked a lot of people about who should be sitting in this job, in this job, in this job. And it has to be non-political. So when I asked about this organization, what type of people will be here? No politics. Zero politics. So, I'm probably like you, a bit probably skeptical. Will it be like that? So we already finished actually with a number of people, the chief, whatever, the group managing directors, etc. We presented to the president last Saturday. And he said, good, Where did they go? These guys go, oh, this multinational. Where did they go to school? Harvard. Okay, good. This. Okay, good. Fine. Did I intervene? No. Okay, fine. Done. Announce it. So we're hoping to announce soon, the next 24 hours. So let's see,
Okay.
But it's been a very interesting journey. It's a bit of a leap of faith, to be honest, because I probably have some degree of skepticism. But as I go through it, I said, this is probably the best thing I'll do for the country, because I think I know.
Right.
But I think I know investment a bit.
Right.
I know what needs to be done. So let me just try it. Let me go and build something that is institutional.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's see.
Wow. Thank you for the answer.
Long answer, right?
No, but I love it, because before we go on to these questions that a lot of Weeboos have asked, I just feel like maybe you and I understand this on a personal level, but there's always pressure to continue our father's legacy.
Oh yeah, man, that's for sure.
And people know me now as somebody who's very active against the government. Not against, but very criticizing the government.
It's okay.
And it's just that I always say, dude, my dad was shot, went to prison.
Yeah.
It's like I can never live up to my dad's name that way. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
My dad was shot a couple of times. 98, he also got shot.
Right? And I WhatsApp Om Hariman Siregar
before coming here. My man.
I WhatsApp Om just to make sure. Dad, Papa, sama Om Sjahrir kenal banget. And Om Hariman just said one thing. Kenal banget.
Yeah.
Because I was too young to talk to your father when he was. So thank you for being candor and being honest about the activism and this history side of your
That's part of Indonesia. It's a history that you should never forget.
Yeah.
It's actually a history that you always have to appreciate. Because Indonesia is actually, because of different viewpoints, it becomes what Indonesia is today. So I actually do appreciate all the questions about Danantara, because it does matter. Don't forget, it's created because also a form of political movement. It's because of power this is created. Now the question is it the power of good or the power of potentially bad?
Yeah.
So I always say, we create Danantara not for 08. We create Danantara for 09, 10, 11, the presidents of the future. It's for Indonesia, not specifically for President Prabowo, but it's also for the next presidents. So you have to think long term when you're building an institution of this caliber.
So actually, that's a very interesting thing to mention, because I think in the Wiwi community also, in the Wiwi community also, we did a post about Danantara, and I see a lot of enthusiasm. And one of the things that was of concern of the community is that will Danantara go beyond the current administration, right? Because the current administration is only 5 years.
5 years.
And usually, like, the types of investment that Danantara might want to do
It'll be much longer.
Might take much longer. So, and we're not sure whether there's it's not guaranteed yet that, for example, President Prabowo will be
nothing is guaranteed in life.
So how can you ensure the continuity of Danantara? Because especially according to the law, right, a lot of Danantara is still directly under the president. Its appointment and a lot of its operation.
The 3 key appointments.
Yeah. And so what if, like, for example, the next president decides, you know what, I don't like Danantara, let's get rid of it. What will happen to the funds, the current investment that are still going on?
Yeah, it's also, okay, first of all, you have to make sure there is permanent alignment of interests. What is Danantara for? So, this is good question, because in 1998, before crisis, SOE was actually a second echelon in Ministry of Finance. It took a crisis for SOE to become its own ministry. So when you're writing the Danantara law, I actually asked one of our board members, our chairman in Toba, named Baselius Ruru. He was the guy who wrote the law in 2003. And then I asked also this guy, a family friend of mine, Laksamana Sukardi, who was the second minister of SOE. And I just asked, in spirit, is this Danantara consistent with what you're thinking? Consensus, they say, this is what we would have done if we had the political will at the time to fully corporatize all the SOE. It became a pure business without political intervention. And this is important. So if you are going to be a president, whatever, the next president, etc., you always want your country to grow. You want your economy to get better. You want to reach this gold Indonesia Emas 2045, that vision where we become part of a G7. This should be a perfect alignment. You will have a vehicle where it only focuses on fully corporatizing all the assets that you have. and focus on profit maximization. Simple put. So if it's something to do with public services, you're already carved out. So if a government said, I want to do more fuel subsidy, fine, you can do it, but using the state budget. Pertamina can be one of the engines to pass on and do the work. But the profit and loss stays with the state, not with Pertamina. Things like that, right? Because this is like, you have to separate what Danantara is, essentially, is fully corporatizing the state-owned enterprise.
I see.
That's a big change of mindset.
Yeah.
Right? All the news flow you hear, etc. Why people are upset about this, I think it's maybe because of a change of status quo. Just a big change of status quo.
Okay.
Here are some of my questions, and you probably like to, probably criticize about this, and I criticize it. Why does every state-owned enterprise have 12 board members?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah.
And then you get in some companies like, what is his reason to become in this mining business? Kind of the young guy who's in mining business. It's like, why don't we streamline that and change from 12 to 5 or 6? But each of the board members really focus on that particular company and focus on increasing the profit of these companies. Just like, so it is not trading political favors. So the fact that I'm willing to talk about this, this is already becoming more public. We want to streamline board membership over time. So it becomes real businesses. And that's important because before there's a lot of political favors, trade in board seats, etc. We want to, over time, minimize that. That's an example, an easy example.
Now, a lot has been said, and I agree. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think you cannot deny the people's perception that because corruption has been such a challenge in Indonesia.
Culture, you mean?
The culture,
The culture.
It's such a culture.
It's a culture.
When people see, when orang-orang awam goes and see this amount of money, they're like, I'm not gonna name names, but you name one of the companies. I didn't name it. One of the companies that you named before, because they told me not to name BUMN names. So
Well, I mean, it's just what Pertamina you can mention.
Big, the team is like,
I guess you can say it. Okay.
Right. You cannot blame the skepticism from the people and say, look at all this corruption made by this. Yes, I understand you are trying to streamline and make the state-owned enterprises more corporatized, more professional. But people's trust are just way low.
Yeah.
And I feel that government people and people in power always say the right things. Of course, I get it.
That's a job.
What is the mechanism? So what is the proper mechanism? Let's just say when X happens, Y happens.
Yeah.
When X happens, Y happens. And who's going to make sure X is going to be held accountable? Okay. What is the Y system and such? I mean, I think that's what people are asking.
I think it's very clear.
Yeah.
If you're doing business activities and you make a mistake, you shouldn't be overtly penalized with it. Just for example.
Okay.
You invested in a stock.
Okay.
Yeah.
It went from 100 to 90 and you sell. I mean, you probably own 100 stocks, right? But one doesn't work, you should not be penalized for that.
Okay.
But if, for example, you work with a procurement guy, mark up that procurement, you benefit, that guy definitely benefit, then something should be done. We should work with the institution like the police, etc., to ensure these guys are being put to justice. So the reason why people are upset is issue with social justice. Is there enough mechanism where if somebody does wrong, but wrong that hurts others, you get penalized for it. But you have to be very wise and be very clear. If somebody just make a mistake, and people make mistakes, right? If it's investment, doing business, suddenly you're doing a contractor business, suddenly you don't get the spare part, the problem happens, your production doesn't work in mining. Do you get penalized for that? Yeah, maybe in your bonus, right? But doesn't mean that you go to jail because of that. So there's also a bit, and this is good for us as we mature, as citizens, as nations, is that we have to be wise in seeing what is a mistake, because simply it's a discretion mistake and you're not thinking of, playing the hanky-panky, or for a second, the hanky-panky. What we're trying to overcome is this culture where we always say, I'm sure that's corruption. Because it's so prevalent. That we're hoping, over time, what we're trying to do, because Danantara, in my view, is actually human capital business.
Okay.
Essentially, it's just people. What is Danantara? It's just a bunch of people trying to figure out how to fully corporatize an institution, a bunch of institutions.
Yeah.
And we know politically it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because imagine what I just told you. I want to limit the number of
12
board
to
members
5,
or whatever, 12 to 7.
Resistance.
You know, that's 800 SOE.
Right.
Call it as 12. It's 10,000 positions.
Right.
Suddenly you want to cut it to 5,000 people out of jobs.
Right.
Quote unquote, or out of positions.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sure there's resistance. The second resistance, we want to go from 800 SOE to 300 SOE over time, the next 18 months. How many jobs potentially are lost? I'm not worried about people in the GM level and below. We'll find them jobs. Yeah. But those in the high end, the directors, the commissioners, they're the one who will make noise.
Yeah.
And they're the one who has power. So I know there's power shift happening. But again, if you're very good, you should be doing that job. We just want to find the best talent. Another thing, this is also critical. We want to find best talent globally for all these businesses that we own.
Right.
So for example, I believe technology should be at the heart of everything we do. So in energy and mining, in oil and gas, we should have AI knowledge of how do we find upstream, how do you do mine planning, and how do you go what they call it pit to port? How do we use technology to enhance the return of these businesses?
Right.
Our use of technology is actually not that significant compared to the global players. So I have a dream. It's a dream, right?
Right.
Why can't Mine ID become the number one player in the world for mining?
Okay.
Why can't Pertamina be one of the biggest energy players in the world?
Okay.
We should not be the biggest in Indonesia. We should be one of the biggest in the world. You know, Mine ID is probably number 6 in the world.
Okay.
Mining company. That's how rich Indonesia is.
Yes.
Right? But why can't you be number 1? To be number 1, you need to think like globalists. I know it's scary, right? I'm just throwing you ideas.
No.
Yeah,
because this is what the way the
I
mindset should be, right?
And so if I'm getting this correctly, one of the way that you can ensure anti-corruption measure is by appointing professionals and people that
I think character is the big thing.
So putting key position, like streamlining and making they're professional and making sure that we differentiate between business mistakes, honest business mistakes, due to risk,
and things that you're doing it because out of greed
due to evil intent.
And evil intent. Yeah.
So I think.
And that's hard because that's a judgment thing, right? And I think if you say you're in the market, if you're not in my shoe and you're outside, you probably say, nah, I think he wants to play hanky-panky. It's easy. And that's something we also need to communicate through actions, right? So, this is not an easy job because you're coming in at a very low expectation. Morale of this is, I think, from some of your listeners or people that watch have a lot of skepticism.
Right.
And that's why I'm here. I'm not here to try to turn you and to become optimists, but I just want to share my way of thinking and see, does it make sense for you?
Yeah.
Right?
About corruption, there's also issues of conflict of interest, right? So
conflict of interest.
And a lot of people always mention, like, why do we have 2 former presidents in Danantara? That opens the door to a potential conflict of interest. What if, for example, I know that you said that Danantara wants to be fully corporatized, but what if, for example, somebody says, hey, can you invest here? Because this is my favorite project, but it's not profitable. It doesn't have the best prospect. Do you have the liberty and independency to
say no to Jokowi or SBA?
Yeah, that's our
basically
job.
I'm going to say.
That's okay.
No to Jokowi, sorry. SBA, sorry. Do you have the liberty to say that?
Yeah, but you have to say it different ways. Our job is to invest profitably. Full stop. So, actually for me, the way I see it, if it doesn't work and say one of those 2 gentlemen asks, it's a great opportunity for me to get to know them better.
Okay.
Essentially, I just use every opportunity to get to know them better. But it's not necessarily mean, I want to do this because I want it for this specific region because of election. So I would probably say, Pa, you want this to be successful because if it doesn't, it may reflect badly on you too later on. So every project we want and to safeguard these presidents. We want to make sure every project, inshallah, goes through under the right due diligence, under the right risk parameter that we put in, and in the long term be successful. And if we have a lot of safeguards. We have an investment committee team. We will have also an internal audit team. We also have they call it the oversight and IC team. So there's like 3 different sectors that are doing at it for every investment to go through. And a lot of these investments are large scale projects. So we have to make sure it works. So, okay, this is a good example.
Okay.
When you talk about investing into the business of EV and battery, that's great for Indonesia because we got nickel.
All the nickel, yeah.
But for it to make money, we need to have a strategic investor to work with us. You need to have somebody like a CATL or LG because those 2 are the largest in the world for battery. They transfer knowledge. They also transfer technology. We're happy to do it and build it together with them. Right. And if you talk about return, what type of return, Pandu, are you going to expect? I'll follow their return. Their return are like private sector return. Right. Them and me will be aligned. We want them to be successful because they don't want to burn money. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah,
like I will invest with partners that bring these 2 technology, and I know they don't want to lose money. Who wants to come in and lose money?
Right.
No one. So I'll work together with them, and they say, "What do you need? I need this type of return." Okay, I follow. I'm happy with that return. Of course, because they probably ask double-digit return, 12%, 15%, 20%. I said, okay, I follow your return. That's a good return. And that's important when you say, hey, Pandu, can you get pushed by Mr. A, Mr. B? Of course, they can ask and come, but I said, I'll follow that return.
Okay, so you'll throw it to the third party.
I didn't throw it to the third party. I follow what the market asks, right?
Okay.
And that's helpful because it also educates whoever that's asking for that quote-unquote favor or push for that favor. And also the way I communicate it also safeguard them in that sense. Because if the project doesn't work in a big amount, it can go all over the place. You know Indonesia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If stuff doesn't work, it goes all over the place.
Right.
So our job is also to protect the long-term interests of the people that is trying to push for a particular project.
Okay. All right. So speaking about
that's
that,
the way I communicate.
So speaking about that, if you're going to follow the interest, okay, when you talk about
the
companies,
private market interest, the investor's interest.
So there's clearly KPIs involved, right? There's key performance indicators that are shown that okay, this company X did this Y, this right. Yeah. So in Danantara, what is your specific KPI? And is this available to see publicly?
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Number 1, I want to make sure we create jobs.
Okay.
Job creation is very important. Yeah. Right. Number 2, that we are deploying that capital with the proper risk management. Okay. And then lastly, I want to make sure at least we make good returns, meaning above our cost. That's important. So the way you see it is, what is the increase in net asset value? That's the terminology we'll use, net asset value. So if it starts at 100, will next year be 103, 105, and then over time it grows, right? It's almost like your pension money. You put it in 10 years, hopefully that number has doubled. That money. You put it on the sideline. But that's the best way to measure. We also, I talk to our guys too, given how much scrutiny and how much interest from the public, I think we have to behave like a public company. I probably have to go to market every quarter. And at the end of the year, I'll publish an annual report for all of you to see. I will learn from those that have done this, like Temasek, like guys out of Abu Dhabi. And I just find what are the best practice and then share. That's it. And I'm sure the first time we publish that annual report, everybody will say, you didn't publish enough A, enough B, enough C. And then we'll simply, the next year, we'll learn from that. Kana, for sure, it will never be perfect, but we'll try based on whatever the best comparison we can do and use that. And now the most important, in my view, will be job creation. And then number 2, make sure you create economic returns.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you care about. Because the way I have to reflect 10 years from now, I'll be 55. I'll be like, oh, what did I do when I read 10 years ago the annual report? Oh, I can see, I should have done this. But at least there's progress. And I hope in 5 years, 10 years, if you ask, this is already either the best or one of the best annual report you'll find among all sovereign funds in the world. Don't forget, this is important too, because this takes a lot of domestic interest, also to manage global interests. Danantara, by the time it's done, by April, May, it'll be the 5th or the 6th largest sovereign funds in the world. Yeah. And this is a way also, as you know, in sovereign funds, finding talent is actually a global war for talent. That's why I have 2 headhunters trying to find the best people for this job. I prefer Indonesians. Yeah. But now I realize in some subjects, we don't have any Indonesians. Right. So for example, CTO, Chief Technology Officer. frankly,
you gotta go to the Indians.
I gotta go somewhere.
I
gotta go somewhere.
I said what he was thinking.
I gotta go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, this is that type of thing, the type of conversation we're doing. Even here, we converse half English, half Indonesian, but over time, I think it's mostly going to be more English, which is a global language.
Okay.
Right? And because we are competing globally.
Got it.
Even though for the benefit of Indonesia. Right? So this is important, We are a global institution.
Okay. I know we're supposed to go to the question because there's a lot of questions.
Just you do you, man.
It's just that we were told by your team not to compare and mention other sovereign funds.
Oh, I just did it too.
Right, but you just did it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to name names.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm not going to name names, but you know who they are.
Yeah.
You said you learned from the best practices of the other sovereign funds. However, other sovereign funds have had very bad practices as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Others.
Right.
One in particular.
One in particular and many. I'm not going to name names. Weeboos are smart. They know who they are. So
Which one?
I can't. Apparently, I can't say it for good practice and ethics and business and all this stuff.
No.
Okay. But clearly, if we learn from history, in which I'm sure you also learn from history, the history hasn't looked great.
Yeah. The track record.
The track record. And it is, I know there are track records that are good, Norway.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are good track records and there are track records that are not good. I get it if you're skeptical. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are close by our country, right? So when our people are like, what will be the differentiation, right? Will Danantara fund the second Wolf of Wall Street? Like people, there's gonna be a lot of.
There's a sovereign fund that funded the Wolf of Us.
Yeah, exactly. So there's gonna be a lot of questions about this, and I know you learn from the good best practices. So please tell me concretely. I'm sure you guys have learned from the others. How do you ensure the people that it won't be the same as the others?
Okay.
Please, this is my question to you.
It's fine. It's fine. I think most important, number one, all eyes on us. So I understand the excitement and also the care for this because it does matter. Just to put in perspective, all the companies under Danantara will represent a third of our capital market, the stock market, close to a third, 27% to be exact. You combine all these entities, probably closer to 250 billion of revenues. So it's massive, right? This is probably the first startup in a way that we cannot fail.
Yeah.
Right.
Where
I agree.
if it's successful, also
Amazing.
people won't say thank you.
Right. It'll be a thankless job. It'll be a
It's a
thankless
thankless job. So
yeah.
that's how I recruit people. I said, guys, you'll come here, and if it doesn't work,
you get crucified.
we'll get crucified.
Yeah.
And if it does work so successfully, nobody will ever say thanks to you.
Right.
Do you want to join the party?
And that's the first question you asked me.
That's what I asked the guy. Do you want to join the party?
You're like,
I'm so excited that everybody wants to. And I mean, you'll hear about the guys, and I'm sure you'll scrutinize them, but they're the best in what they do.
Yeah.
And the reason they do it is because of purpose and because they want to be part of history. So the way I sell people is not about money. Most of the guys that are joining us, I think they're done. They're almost done with money. They care about purpose and they care about history. So I sold them on that rather than selling, you're going to make a lot of money, bro. No. This is about purpose and part of history. And that excites them the most. We got guys who are CEO of global institutions, the head of Asia Pacific of one institution in the money market. Yeah. And these are money guys. Right. And the money guys usually only care about money. When you sell them on purpose, history, their eyes lit up. And most of them, I think on average, they're 55, 54, 55. So they've been super successful in what they do. This is the next stage of their career. So they love it. We just had a big meeting upstairs. We're going through the budget and everything and recruitment. We got just great people coming in. You'll find out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll engage with you.
Right.
In fact, we should get some of the guys maybe in a couple of months, sit down and talk to you.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. See, I mean, the best way to want to know is actually to know the people that are working here. That's the best way to do it, the upper caliber of people. I want to make sure that we can find the best talent and the best talent want to work here. That's my ultimate goal. In 5 years, right? I got a 5-year contract. At the end of that 5 year, I just want to make sure that this has become the global pool for talent, the talent pool. All want to work here because this is the best of the best. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to the weeboos.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the answers, and I know, everyone, every government officials, and every people that we ask, right? Though they always have the best intention, and they never
we try
have,
our best, right?
Yeah, they never have like, oh yeah, I'm here to corrupt your money, but somehow it usually happens, usually along the lines and along the way, and in one way or another. And so I think the key here is audit and transparency. And this question here by
NB
Maulani.
Shout out.
So I'm going to read it. BPK has the authority to audit Danantara, which suggests that its transactions are considered part of state finances. However, the regulation also states that any losses Danantara incurs are not classified as state losses, and its asset, unless specifically pledged, cannot be seized. Doesn't this create contradiction? And with this level of financial independence, how will Danantara ensure its transparency and accountability?
So we already answered that transparency, accountability part. We will also be audited by essentially the big two. There's only two companies. The biggest of the two are auditing us anyway, starting to audit. So they'll also publish accountability and transparency side. BPK under the new law, the law number 1/2025 of this SOE, they actually have some jurisdiction on the BPI Danantara on the holding level. But obviously below, it'll be managed mostly by auditors. So those two global auditors that will be work with us. So there'll be accountability, transparency. I mentioned before, we will behave like a public company. So you can see, and time will be a judge of that, right? There's already mechanism. So if you read the law and the government regulation, obviously they're check and balances. That's why we also have the Ministry of SOE involved. They'll be part of the regulators in that sense. The chairman is a minister of SOE. So it's not like a place that just you can go wild west on this. There are a lot of check and balances in place.
By chairman, you mean Erick Thohir kan?
Yeah, of course. Right now, he's the minister of SOE.
Yeah, minister. Yeah,
Minister.
Yeah.
All right.
Next question.
Do you want to read?
Yes.
Which one?
I read from...
This is the first podcast in English that I've done. It's pretty cool.
Okay. This question is from Sylvia Gideon.
Gideon.
Gideon, sorry.
Yeah.
One.
One.
She has two, or I'm assuming it's a woman. Sylvia is a woman.
Are you sure?
Okay.
I have no idea. Though. I have no idea.
2025, you can't judge.
Yes, you can. I'm just kidding.
One, who will be the employee of Danantara? Just like he said before.
Inshallah.
It's going to come up soon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to come up soon. Two, successful sovereign wealth fund in other countries, mostly led and run by private professionals and report to the government. In Indonesia, Danantara still will be led by government officials. How do you ensure their professionalism? What about a conflict of interest in running Danantara? Well, this is what we talked with Abigail before.
So specific, I'll answer my personal, because everyone that we've recruited are all professionals. We cannot have politicians be in Danantara, working in Danantara.
Nggak boleh dwi-fungsi politician and in the... You see what I did there?
That was smooth. That was good.
Dwi-fungsi Danantara politician.
No, I cannot. For me, myself, I dropped my job. I got in Toba the same day, 24th February, I let it go. All my investment position in Singapore, I also let it go. Yeah. So even my emails don't work anymore. I got this new Danantara email, which now I use exclusively. So essentially for me, I don't have any managerial role anymore. Right. The only thing I can do, I think, is that surfing association. I don't think there's a lot of conflict. Surfing. No, I'm chairman of surfing.
Surfing as in
Indonesian surfing.
Oh, like surfing.
Surfing.
Oh,
surf.
I thought it was.
Not surfing the internet, but surf.
Surfing.
It's a sport.
The sport,
It's an Olympic sport. We sent an athlete there.
We have Rio. Half Japanese.
Rio Waida.
Rio.
And now we got a new guy, 17-year-old. He just won the world championship.
Okay. So, shout out.
Because my daughter likes surfing. I have an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So I'll do it. So, I don't think I have a lot of conflict in the stuff I do. So I dropped all the business side.
Right.
And now this is my full-time job. And the people we're recruiting, all I'm only going to focus on Danantara. That should serve the conflict of interest. They can't serve in any other boards.
But Pandu, what if you're the exception to the rule? What if you drop the things?
Yeah, what about Mas Rosan, Mas Doni?
So Rosan actually served, this is an important role. Rosan is the Minister of Investment. Is not unique. In Abu Dhabi, it's the same thing. And the reason being is because for them to attract investment is to push regulation faster
Okay.
And Ijin, what is Ijin?
Permits.
Yeah. So if we invest with somebody, can we get the permit fast? Let's ask the Minister of Investment. Bro, can you sign the permit? Oh yeah, this is the investment we got to do. We got to do it quickly.
Okay.
And that actually helps our business.
Okay.
Right? With Pak Doni, also perfect because one of the other shareholders, Minister of SOE. I need a bridge to the Minister of SOE so then we can work faster. So those two play a proper function that we need so that this thing can run faster.
So no politician unless they...
Both of them are not politicians, by the way. They're
So
both civil. Different
politician?
Politicians. You're a member of a political party.
Member of a
Number
political
one,
party.
member of
Okay.
political party. And then you join the government or you're outside the government. Both of them are actually professionals.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
are
Like Doni
appointed
before
ministers.
was CEO of CD Corp.
Yeah.
Rosan before ambassador, he owns a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Right? Own hotels, everything. So he's just a businessman.
Okay.
But,
I have to ask, what about Pak SBA then?
But SBY is actually only sitting closer to the president's side. He's part of the steering committee, only him and President Jokowi. And I understand the political reason is to ensure continuity. And so there's no noise, etc. And actually, both of them are statesmen. I consider both of them now as statesmen. So I've spoken with both of them too. But Danantara, I'm actually learning a lot about how they view nation building.
Okay.
Which is, for me, it's cool. Just learning.
But I'm sorry, I have to give a big pushback.
Please.
Not everybody sees continuity as a good thing. This is
okay.
Right. So
Because it's like it sacrifices checks and balance in a way.
right. In a way, then if any of those gentlemen be like, no, this is important for continuity. Okay, in your perspective, some other person would be like, no, in my perspective, this continuity is going on. But I see what you're getting at. But you also see the criticism the other way.
That's okay. And that's important because one of the good thing in terms of nation building and for citizens to grow is to also have discussions like this. Right. Like I'm now at that stage where I realize social justice is becoming very important. So I actually want a government that also focuses not just on economic growth solely, but also focuses on the 30 to 60 million of our citizens who doesn't have access to good education, who doesn't have access to good healthcare. So there has to be, in a way, a balancing of sort, right? And you can only do it through discussions like yours. I think this is actually a social service, what you're doing, for us to be able to communicate. Right now, I'm in the view that I want to have continuity in terms of economic growth, but I need to have a rebalancing in terms of giving people better chances in terms of moving up the economic circle. So if you look at the budget, I'm kind of going offside here a little bit, but it's okay. Like I really want a budget that focus less on hard infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay.
More on soft infrastructure.
Right.
So on schools.
Okay.
On healthcare, things related to that, rather than building more toll roads.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like, the way I'm looking at things. So
human capital is basically.
Yeah, and human capital, the problem is bad for politicians, but it's good for nation building. Because politicians,
they want to see
every
something.
5 years, you want to see it right away. So that's why building roads is cool, fast.
Right.
Building schools,
it's hard and
no,
it
the
takes a long
dividend
time.
only takes 10 years from now.
Yep.
Okay.
So I thought, you got to interview this lady, Stella Christie. She's cool, a friend of mine now. She's Vice Minister of Higher Education.
We don't have her contact, so can you?
Yeah, definitely, dude. I'll pass it along.
Yeah.
I mean, she's so cool about thinking about it, a bit like on the right field of things.
Right.
But I think you need somebody who's a bit like her to push it forward dramatically. So I really do wish her the best in her job. That she doesn't need the job, to be honest. She's doing really well. But, we need people like her to kind of break it through,
Yep.
Education matters, man.
Yeah.
And that's probably the one thing I'm probably most passionate to talk about that.
Yeah.
This is, my way of giving back, but education is probably my thing.
All right.
Okay. Next question from Arya Guna. If you don't like this question, Arya Guna lives in Kemang. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
No, please. Yes.
Arya Guna, do you think you deserved this role? Or is it because you're related?
To?
If yes,
Relate to who?
I don't know. This says related.
Oh,
This is-
related.
I would assume Luhut. Let's
I would
just say
assume.
it.
I would assume.
Not to Pak Sjahrir.
No. But Pashar is a great guy. If yes, there's no issue if you do the job right. At least you're honest about being
Related.
very privileged.
Oh yeah, I'm very
Yeah,
privileged.
this is
That's true. On the privilege part, absolutely. I have my late father to thank for. I have my mother, and the way I have my uncle now, who in the second part of my life teach me a lot about leadership. They have opened a lot of doors to me. I went through that stage when I was younger that I want to like eliminate that part of my life. So I just want to be my own, do everything on my own, which I did, very well until I got called back. And then I had that little mini conflict when I was in my 30s about who I am. Like,
Right.
But now I kind of like live with it, and I'm actually enjoy it very much because I said, look, why do you have to shy? You have to be thankful of your lineage. You're very grateful. Actually, you're probably more mature than me. When I was at your age, I was like, nah, I don't want to be known as this guy's son or this.
It's annoying.
It's annoying,
Living.
But now I can actually live really well with it. And, the one thing that I think now I'm very grateful of is that I can maximize that relationship to the best advantage. I know what I'm good at. I maximize that.
Right.
And I'm not shy about all this. But I told you the story about how I got the job.
Right. Yeah, you talked
which also was a shock to me.
In the beginning.
So, even the Danantara concept, I had to ask the president himself, what is that concept? So, honestly, this is probably, everyone has this kind of like jalan hidup. What is jalan hidup?
Fate, maybe.
Your fate,
Life
right?
journey.
Life journey. I didn't plan for this. I didn't know that this year, this is what I will do. But frankly, when you have it, the opportunity, and you see it can make you, and it's for all you, the young ones. If it's gonna make you out of your comfort zone, but it's gonna make you grow, then grab it by the balls.
Yeah.
Just grab it.
I love it. Grab it by the balls.
Grab it by the balls.
That's gonna be the Danantara code.
That's gonna be
Danantara, grab it by the balls. Okay,
because it doesn't happen very
there we go.
often. When it does happen, grab it, seize it, and run with it.
All right.
Alright.
Well, so the team has been saying like we've run out of time. But I do need to ask one last question.
Please.
A lot of our viewers are going to be mad if I don't ask this.
Okay.
But so as of today,
as of this week 4 of Danantara,
2 days ago, the index
is down.
Is down.
Yeah.
Because of Danantara.
It's suspended.
Wow.
I didn't say that. So
I don't know. That's what some people asked me that day. So.
Okay.
So a lot of our viewers, I think, are investors, right? And so, how do you view this? What can Danantara do about this situation? And what can the government maybe do also, if there's any what type of regulation and things like? Because the main issue is distrust, right? Like there's a lot of outflow basically due to distrust. And what do you have any tips for the retail investor? They're massively panicking right now.
So I love investing. When everybody's fearful, you buy. When everyone is so excited, you sell.
Okay.
I mean, this is what's happening today. It feels as though it's maximum fear the last 2 days, right? When it happens on some random day, there was a rumor that happened in the morning, and then suddenly the market fell, and there were no buyers. It was just like a vacuum.
Yeah.
And suddenly, market went down. Nobody could explain it. It was a bit technical. I mean, I understand what happened, but essentially, there was a vacuum. As though, when you're in an airplane and suddenly you hit a vacuum and it went whoosh. That's essentially what happened. Everybody was caught off guard, and everybody was trying to find reasons. But the real reason, and I hate saying this,
it's turbulence.
It's actually of this happening. People were waiting already for the last couple of weeks because there has been a lot of rebalancing in portfolio. A lot of people are selling because they're going to risk-free asset. To gold. If you look at gold all-time high, they go to USD, they go to treasuries simply because what's happening in the US too, which is also fearful, right?
Right.
Indonesia is simply one element. But today, that market was very particular because Indonesia only had a negative.
Yep.
All the other index were actually positive. So it started with a rumor. Suddenly there was a massive selling, and the selling was not much. If I look at it, it was about 6-7 trillion rupiah, 405 yen. It's only take $500 million to move a market that deeply. One thing it taught me, the market in Indonesia has to be deeper. We need to have bigger liquidity. We cannot have a liquidity like this where you only have a rumor, $500 million can move a market. In any other market, if you look at India, it probably takes you 10 billion US
to move that
20 times to move it. Thailand, much smaller country, probably takes about 2 billion to move it. To move it like that. Here, $500 million. So I was like, I don't understand what happened. right? And so this is one of the things that if you want to talk about solution, the best permanent solution is that we have to be at least 1/3 of India. India today is at 15 billion trading volume a day. Indo is less than a billion. You got to go to 3 to 5 billion. So things like that is much harder to move. It only takes 1 or 2 quote unquote whales to move Indonesian market, which is sad. In India, probably takes 10 whales to move in concrete, and that won't happen. So I think it's a market that's shallow. That's probably my best explanation. If you talk about confidence of investors, etc., it's been going on the last 3 weeks. It could have happened the week before.
Yeah.
It just happens 2 days ago. But if you look at the last 2 days, market has rebounded well because there's been a lot of domestic buying. Another solution is also, and this is also very important, we need to increase domestic institution to buy. Whether it's the Jam Sostek of the world, whether it's the Taspen, and that's where probably Danantara will come in. How can we be more actively involved in the public equity market? So this is what I think. Market deepening is that important.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Pandu.
you, guys.
We are 1 minute remaining. All I want to say is
Thank you.
this. I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
I'm still skeptical.
Please
I'm
do.
still looking at it from the criticism glass, but I know you're in it with good intentions.
Thank you.
And please don't be afraid. Like just like our dads, if anything happens, I'm going to be the first to criticize you.
No, please do.
Just because I'm here speaking to you does not mean I'll be very brave to criticize you.
Oh, please do.
And you know I have the gene.
Yeah,
you should also have that gene. So thank you so much, Pandu. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on
See
the
you,
next
Weeboos.
podcast.